Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our Sunday service. So great to see so many faces. If you guys are new, do we have any new members in the house? Please put in the chat and let us know that you're brand new. We love welcoming all our new members, and so everybody can just say hello. Second week, Robert. Woohoo! Welcome.
Thank you, Mai. Go ahead and raise your hand if you want to share your story. Let's start with Sharsha.
When I started making videos online, I didn't know how to edit. I didn't have fancy camera. I didn't have any equipment. All I had was my phone. Whenever I saw some successful creators, especially of my age, I used to think they are successful only because of good camera and amazing editing with graphics. They can afford, so they are crushing. I believe that these things matter most when it comes to video making. One evening, when I was researching some YouTube channel to learn about YouTube, I saw a simple thumbnail video with 800k views. I was curious to know why would people click on this ugly thumbnail. I clicked that video. There was a man in blue t-shirt talking about how to understand the relationship between political science and stock market, and there was no editing. He didn't even have any cut or any transition. The background was just his white wall. I can easily see that he was recording by his phone camera. I was shocked to see the view counts. I rushed to see how many subscribers he has. He had 1 million subscribers, and I just went back to his channel and started finding the reason why people follow him. I didn't find anything fancy. His all videos were just normal. I watched 20 videos of him to figure it out because now I wanted to do the same. In between of his some video, he said, I just tell what I think after experimenting, and I feel so happy when you like my opinions on things, and some people may not like it, and it's fine. And I think I finally cracked the code. He was successful because of what he says. His own research and experimenting, which forms his strong opinion, is the reason of his success. I didn't want to agree to this truth, but eventually I learned that it's not about amazing aesthetic editing or graphics. It's about you, it's about your words, it's about your opinion, which helps people to get better at their life and solves a specific problem. Now I focus on building my opinion after studying, analyzing, and observing.
Good job. Thank you. Let's next go to Michael.
My story is, I was a university teacher for like 30 years. I was a pianist. I worked in music institute. I was an employee. This was a great job. I really loved it. I loved working with students on their music. And after 30 years, I got tired. The last year, I wasn't having fun anymore. So I decided to quit. I also had a kind of a second profession. I'm a Feldenkrais practitioner. I work with mindful movement. I teach it. I've been giving classes throughout my career. So I knew how to do that. And I thought, this is something that people need. I'm going to dedicate myself to this. This was about 4 years ago. And I thought, okay, I know how to teach it. What's the problem? And I found out, to my horror, that I've decided to become an entrepreneur and that I'm a business owner now. I had no idea what that meant. It was totally not even considered in my thoughts, and still struggling to understand how to have a business, how to find clients. In the pandemic, I moved online, so now I'm a digital business owner. I still have little idea how to run a business, how to be independent, how to manage my time. So this was a big shock, and I thought of becoming a teacher, and I became a student with a long learning curve that is still going on. That's it.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, let's move to Laura.
6-year-old me looked up at my parents and the officers in complete shock that none of them could help me. I was the kid and they were the adults. My bike had been stolen out of our backyard. My red bike, my favorite thing. Mom and Dad called the police to find it, or so I thought. They actually called to make sure there hadn't been a break-in. They said they wouldn't be looking for my bike because it was long gone. I couldn't believe it. Adults are supposed to be able to fix everything. Something I had believed to be true that turned out to be false. My first lesson in how having expectations can lead to resentment.
So good. Okay, Dick?
So once upon a time, I used to believe that clothing choices were limited to the binary options of male and female. I thought that I had to conform to societal norms and pick a side. As a result, at times I felt confined or restricted. So for example, when I was in high school in the early 90s, I had to choose from brands like, I went to a Catholic school too, so I had to, on our PA days where we can wear civilian clothing, I had to choose between what brand I can wear. So it would be like Ralph Lauren, Nautica, Timberland. I ended up choosing Nautica. In my 20s, when I moved to Sweden, I went to like a Nordstrom type of store at the mall, and I saw this sweater. I loved it. And so when I went to but in Sweden, they don't have, it doesn't say men's or women's, or it's not really defined. So when I was looking for a retail lady, I asked her if it was men's or women's because I liked the fit. And she said, does it matter? It looks good on you. But if you really want to know, it's for women. And then in my 30s, because I'm Filipino, in my 30s, I started to focus more on pre-colonial identity. And I started wearing, I started to incorporate into my style more of pieces or accessories that are not essentially men or women, but they're functional. So think of a tubular skirt that can be used for anything. I don't have a picture right now, but I'll show in my presentation after. But yeah, I've been using that, and I felt more comfortable. So for all my 30s of it was really comfortable about just not really caring about what's male or female. And then last week, which made me write this story, was I'm part of a gents group, and most of the guys in the gents group are 6 to 8 figure digital marketers in their early 20s, and they posted something on their IG stories. They were at a store, and I said, "Oh, what are you looking for?" And they said they were looking for these shoes called Loro Piano Summer Walks. I said, "Oh, what are those?" I said, "They're loafers." So I checked, and when I checked, it's like, I go, "Oh, loafers, okay. I like the gray one, but I like this one better. It's slightly pink, and it has a charm on it. I like this style because it's a little different." And to which my 24-year-old friend, or I think he was only 21-year-old friend, had said, "The ones with the charms are for women only." And then, so I went back, and then I looked at the website once again. I was like, well, it didn't really say if it was. And even if it wasn't, I go, well, that's good. Then that means that when I wear it, then that means it's not only for women. It's not only for women anymore because I'm wearing it.
Okay, Arthur.
I remember English has always been a passion of mine. And once I became an English teacher, I wanted to have the perfect accent, American accent. And one YouTuber whom I admire said, the best way to do that is to get in touch with native English speakers. They are in online communities, so you can get in those communities, make friends with an American, so you will have the chance to practice every day, and eventually your English will be perfect. Not her words, my interpretation. And so I did. But the friendship didn't work back then because I think all of them could sense that I had an agenda, that I wasn't being entirely honest with my friendship offer. Until one day I was doing the dishes a few years later, and I was listening to another YouTuber, and I thought, whoa, what a beautiful English. I want to have that. And I was there doing the dishes, and suddenly she said, I'm a non-native English speaker. And I thought, well, what? How's that possible? I thought I had a good year for that, and I couldn't see any trace of an accent. And it was, by the way, Hadar Shemesh. And I thought, what the hell? And so I started following her and joined her communities. And then I shared that story, that I wanted to sound just like a native English speaker with an American accent, but I was tired of it because that obsession was somehow fruitless. It was an illusion. It wasn't true. I never felt like myself. And I joined her community, and I started for the first time speaking in English with other non-native speakers. And for the first time, English became like a second skin for me. Finally, it became a part of myself in which I could share my thoughts. And then I realized that English is somehow a safe space for me. But I could only identify that once I admitted that I am who I am. So there is no perfect way of speaking in a language.
Yeah.
There's only the way we express ourselves.
I want to quickly ask you, was there a specific 5-second moment of like aha moment, or was it like a gradual thing?
I see it as a gradual thing, but the moment when I was doing the dishes and Hadar said, I'm a non-native English speaker, I thought, how's that possible? But that was the beginning of something bigger that
Exactly.
it doesn't matter.
Thank you so much for sharing, Arthur. Let's move on. What makes a good story? 5-second moment, is there a specific moment with the what, when, where, and with who, rather than just kind of a description of a story, but an actual moment that you can clearly draw a picture of? Number 2, inner transformation. Is there an old you versus the new you? Did you learn something? Did you go through some sort of a transformation internally that made you learn the lesson? Number 3, external or internal trigger. What is the thing that made you get that transformation? What was the thing that caused the 5-second moment, right? So for example, Arthur, it was when he listened to Hadar say, oh, I'm not a native speaker. Like in that moment, something has shifted and something has triggered him to start thinking differently. 4th, kill your darlings. The whole point of this is to, I think a lot of times what we do is we just ramble on and on and on and on. And this lesson is related to like, perfectionism related to overthinking, which is related to, analysis paralysis, which is related to like, so a lot of things in our lives, the lessons are related. So if we just keep going related, we can go on forever. So what we need to do is we need to hype. I see a lot of people make this mistake where they say, they'll tell a story and, oh, I guess the lesson is this, but it also is this, and it's also this, and also that. Like, we need to be hyper specific. So rather than telling a long story, what I always say is split that up into multiple stories. And then finally, readability. After you write it, you really need to read through your whole story multiple times and rewrite every sentence until it's in the simplest form, using the least number of words, using the simplest words that you can possibly use. It was the first time I done yoga, but that was actually kind of like a teacher for teachers to teach yoga. So almost everybody there were like yoga teachers, and here's me, like somebody who hasn't even done yoga, right? And I didn't even know any of the poses, but they teach this yoga sequence called Journey into Power. It's a yoga sequence with 11 sections, and then like somewhere between like 3 to 6 or 7 yoga poses within each one of those parts. Day 1, I literally had no idea what even the poses were. But what they did was every day they had us go through the pose, like starting from the first pose, like, go through every pose, we'll practice it. And then in the afternoon, we'll do it again. But how they did it was they just had us repeat the first sequence over and over. And then once we were done, and then we start from beginning and we do the first sequence and then the second sequence. And then on the next day, we'll do first, second, and third sequence, right? And so I kept repeating that over and over until we got to 11 sequence. And by end of that week, I literally memorized that entire sequence by heart because I just kept doing it over and over. So we need to practice, and through that repetition is how you're going to get good at storytelling, how you're going to apply all of those things that I talked about naturally without even trying, because it's kind of like part of you, right? There's 2 things that we're going to repeat. One of them is these storytelling exercises that's going to help you learn those storytelling things that I just talked about in the previous slide, the 5-second moment, internal transformation, the trigger, so on and so on. And then the second is the bonus exercise. So every week, I'm going to have an exercise and then a bonus exercise, right? There's going to be a lot of times when you guys try to tell a story from like, oh, this is the lesson that it's like you're trying to turn it into a content for your audience. That's what you're going to try to do naturally, because that's how you've been making content your whole life. So you're gonna start to think like, oh, I need to tell this story because this story has something to do with my business or something to do with my industry. So I need to somehow tie it and relate it to my business. Do not do that. Just do the exercises exactly as I tell you and be present, right? Every time I go to these like seminars or retreats or these, places where a lot of like, the self-help, personal development people are there, people always try to jump to conclusion. Don't jump to conclusion. Don't skip ahead. Just do the assignment. Throw out any expectation, any agenda, or any kind of preconceived of notion of what you think you know. Throw all of that out. Okay, now I want to talk about 5-second moment. One of the first biggest things that I see when, whenever we start this program with kind of new members is that they don't actually tell a story. They tell a summary of a story. None of that is telling me exactly what happened, right? I have to be able to picture you with the what, when, where, with who. And that's a specific 5-second 5-second moment. So what a 5-second moment happens is it's exactly that. It happens in 5 seconds because something unexpected has happened. It's always something that threw you off or that was kind of surprising or unexpected. What I want to do right now is I want you to share what's a vivid memory of a 5-second moment that happened in your life. Cynthia?
It was a Saturday and I was home alone, which is strange because I have 2 kids. And I was watching this Stanley's live documentary, and when he was there and he said, you know what, I have been always a reader. I read also the cereal books and then I become a writer. And then I was just like that and I say, wow, I used to go with my gay uncle to all the theater functions. I mean, all the theater presentations. And it just hit me. It was just like, wow, that's why I love theater, because I just went there each week to see all the theater presentations. It really doesn't matter if it was musicals, anything. So it just hit me, just like, wow, I haven't realized that my life has to do with my childhood.
Thank you for sharing, Cynthia. Okay, let's go to Mitzi.
I had a story that I've been working on, and I think I'm going to develop it this week. But I was thinking about the idea of near miss moments in life, like things that almost happened. And one of the things was when I was a little girl, we lived on top of a big hill, and I had to walk all the way down to the bottom of the hill to go to the bus stop. And it would be really early in the morning. And on the way down, there was a neighbor that had a big barn, and they had a caretaker who was like a handyman that took care of their barn and their stuff around their yard and whatnot. And he started to pull his car up into the grass by my bus stop, and he would be washing his car in the morning at like 7 o'clock in the morning when I was a little girl. And so it was this bright red Thunderbird with a white top. It was like in the 70s. And one morning he gestured for me to come over to the car. And I did. So I walked up to the car. I had a little extra time. And then he asked me to get into the car. And I did. I sat down in the front seat next to him. And I remember him getting in, and he was a very creepy looking guy. I did not like him at all. I had a very bad feeling about him. And nothing happened, but I knew that it was very dangerous what I was doing. And I just got out and ran away out of the car and ran down to the bus stop. And then I ignored him forever after that. And it was one of those moments where I realized something really bad could have happened to me. And it just didn't hit me.
No, that's a great example of something that, you still remember like it was yesterday. You still remember that. You can picture it. It doesn't matter if there's a story there or not. I just want you to come up with the 5-second moment. Okay, Sue?
I was about 4, and my sister was 16 years older than me. And she had just come home from, I don't know, college or school or something. And she was kind of mysterious to me because she was so much older. And I remember I was in bed and I snuck out of bed and I went into her room. She wasn't in her room. And I was just looking around because she was so like mysterious. She was a flower child and all that. And she had this little brown paper bag, and I opened it up and it was those black licorice like jawbreakers. And I love those. So I took one out of the bag, and then like I put it in my mouth and I closed the bag and I snuck out, tiptoed back to my room, went to sleep with this jawbreaker in my mouth. I felt like I was doing something really wrong. And I had this pillowcase that I love so much. It was Charlie Brown, like a Peanuts pillowcase. And it said, the bubble, like happiness is being one of the gang. Like it was my favorite pillowcase. And I woke up in the morning and all the black from the jawbreaker was like all over the pillowcase, like completely stained it. And I was like, I'm busted. Like everyone's gonna know what I did because I can't get rid of this stain. And that's the story.
Thank you. What I want you to do now, I want you to build a story bank. Story bank are gonna contain these moments of all those memories that you remember all throughout your life. Kind of go back to that moment and try to picture yourself back then, what happened, right? But don't go into details of writing them all down yet. I just want you to think about it. And then as soon as you remember that moment, just write in one sentence. So your weekly exercise is going to be to divide your life into 6 different periods. And for all of you guys, the periods might be different. So it might be something like childhood, high school, college, when you got your first job, maybe like your married period, and then once you become a mother or father. So I want you to so you can kind of imagine what are the significant periods in your life. And for each one of those, write 3 to 5 moments, the ones that you remember the most, like that you can vividly imagine, right? And the purpose of this exercise is for you to, number one, I want you to realize how many different stories you have in your life. All of those little micro moments are all stories. And I also want you to see that those little memories that you have, the reason why they're lingering is because they were significant to you. Those are the moments that led you to become the person that you are today. So through this exercise, we're trying to help you find who you are and what's your journey that led you to this place. For your bonus exercise, what I want you to do is I want you to share what you learned, the same thing you share in your group on social media using #NightOutNation. Same thing, follow #NightOutNation if you haven't already. This week, what I want you to do is once a day, I'm trying to get you in the habit of being social on social media because this is part of the thing that's going to help you create more content. So once a day, I want you to like and comment on 10 posts in your homepage feed, the home feed, right? Whatever your regular home feed that Instagram suggests to you or Twitter suggests to you or whatever. And then once a day, I want you to share, whether through Instagram stories or to repost or whatever, I want you to share a post that you like from that home feed. I want to share this quote from Brené Brown with you. Creativity is the power to connect the seemingly unconnected. How do all these experiences come together to make up who I am? When we deny our stories, they define us. When we own our stories, we get to write a brave new ending. Owning our story can be hard, but not nearly as difficult as spending our lives running from it. Only when we're brave enough to explore the darkness will we discover the infinite power of our light. And while the journey is long and difficult at times, it is the path to living a more wholehearted life. In a culture of scarcity and perfectionism, there's a surprisingly simple reason we want to own, integrate, and share our stories of struggle. We do this because we feel the most alive when we're connecting with others and being brave with our stories. It's in our biology. The idea that we are wired for story is more than a catchy phrase. Neuroeconomist Paul Zak has found that hearing a story, a narrative with a beginning, middle, and end, causes our brains to release cortisol and oxytocin. These chemicals trigger the uniquely human abilities to connect, emphasize, empathize, and make meaning. Story is literally in our DNA. Thank you, everyone. See you next week. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
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 Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Gracias.